Holmes, most behavioral scientists would have a gradient between animal and human behaviors, brains, indeed minds. You see a more step function difference. Why so?
I see that humans have crossed a certain critical threshold. It's the way I'd put your step function. Now, I do think human minds evolved out of animal minds. I'm impressed with animal minds. I spent March in Yellowstone tracking wolves. Wolves have got a sense of smell that I greatly envy, for example. Bats can fly and catch insects at night with their sonar systems. I don't want to depreciate any of that. But nevertheless, I think humans have crossed a radical threshold. Partly it's the size of the human mind. The human brain is about 3 times the size of a chimpanzee brain. It is said to have been the most rapidly growing organ in the history of Earth, life on Earth, for example. Well, what's different? What's different in some sense can be categorized by the size and by the synaptic possibilities. They have reached great scale in what's called a combinatorial explosion. Think of a typewriter. A typewriter has 26 letters or whatever, capital, uppercase, lowercase, periods, punctuation marks, maybe 120 keys of sorts. How many novels, how many sentences could be written on a typewriter? Could you ever write all the sentences that could be written on a typewriter? That's what's called a combinatorial explosion, and that's vastly compounded in the human mind. My mind, your mind, can think something in the range of 10 raised to the 70 billionth power thoughts, right? That's worth watching a good program in the evening, even if you never get a good further thought from the whole program that you watch, isn't it, for example? Now, what do we do with that? We have the capacity to retrieve, store, process ideas. Humans have what's called a theory of mind. By that we mean they can pass ideas from mind to mind to mind over generations. And we hope that's happening right this moment, for example. Now, we think that animals, of course, can learn. Maybe one monkey can realize that another monkey knows where the bananas are hidden or something of that sort. But no monkey knows that you know the Pythagorean theorem and he doesn't, right? But you might well know that you can teach what you have learned. Humans in that sense have the capacity to teach across generations. That gives them cumulative, transmissible cultures, and we stand as the inheritors of centuries of accumulated transmissible culture. That's part of our genius. There's nothing analogous to that in animal life, for example. And I think that makes us radically different. It involves speech. Speech, of course, has the capacity to symbolize ideas and to have grammar, to have clauses and subjects and verbs and so forth. Little or nothing of this is found in animal minds. And that gives us the capacity for these cultures. I think humans only can teach. Now, I have to be a little careful with that. Animals certainly imitate the behavior of other animals. They do that all the time, and they're rather good at doing that. Humans, too, imitate the behavior of mom and dad and other humans. But intent to teach is a little different. That means that the parent observes the child, realizes what the child doesn't know, and intends to pass ideas into the child's mind that the child does not now have. That's intent to teach. I don't think that's found anywhere in the animal world. Animals may teach, but they don't deliberately teach or intend to teach in that sense.
This fundamental difference between humans and animals, do you see a theological implication in that?
Well, if you want me to use a biblical phrase, that suggests that humans are you ready?
I'm prepared.
Humans are made in the image of God.
And you would take that literally as opposed to metaphorically?
Well, the image of God is metaphorical in some sense. I do think, though, that the biblical idea is that humans are different from the animals who are not made in the image of God. And by that, they're suggesting the capacities that are portrayed in Genesis of Adam and Eve as having the capacity to live in the garden, to view the garden, to have communion with God, if you like, to be rational animals, the Greek philosophers probably put it that way, and to be moral, to have capacities for good and evil. I think those come with this human difference. I don't think that animals have the capacity for good and evil, to be reflective about good and evil, and to act on conviction in the face of temptation to do otherwise, for example. That, I think, makes us different. And yes, you can say, if you like, those raise theological questions about humans might be creatures that need salvation, that need a worldview in the way that the wolves that I admired and the bats that I earlier admired do not.